Hello, everyone. Today is Saturday, January the 18th, and I'm picking up on my 2025 forecast. That means my humble view of the situation and how the year may turn out for all of us. In part one, we looked at the nodes changing to um, Pisces Virgo, to that new axis, and the nodes being our spiritual compass or our life task indicator, nudging us in the direction that is best for our evolution. And we looked at Neptune and Saturn moving into the sign of Aries, which is the sign of assertion, and it is a fast sign, it is courageous, and it is aggression. So, and then the planets, Neptune being the planet of this of spirituality and dissolution, illusion, theft, deceit, but also the arts and beauty and film, dance, music, and Saturn being the planet of stability, discipline, structure, learning lessons. And so today we pick up on Uranus going into Gemini and also Jupiter going into Cancer. So, and then we look at the eclipses and also my view of the Mayan perspective. For that, I will share my screen. Here we go. I think I have to do these two. Switch to the slide. Okay, here we are. Oh, it is already. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, and my picture is gone. Perfect, that's where I wanted it. So what I did last time is I took you on a little voyage into the past, and we looked at how the planets performed, if you want, when they were in those signs previously. So now we look at Uranus in Gemini, and the last time it happened, I looked up one, two, three, what is it, four periods when that happened. The oldest, or the one that is longest in the past, is from 1691 to 1697. Uranus is in a sign for 7 years. And so the exact dates, because I did that in part one also. So let's do that. So April 27, 1691 until December 16, 1697. So what did we see in that time? We saw in France there was a famine, and that killed 2 million people. We had the Bank of England was established. We had, and also I think I mentioned Gemini is the sign of commerce. So we're not only exchanging information when we are in a communication, which Gemini stands for, we also in Gemini we're concerned with exchanging goods and services. So their banks also go into when we talk about Gemini, in banks we're exchanging currency, and it has to do with commerce, goods and services. So we had another famine in Finland, and that wiped out 2/3 of the population. And of course, we had the Industrial Revolution. So the period after that was from June 19, 1774 until April 28, 1782. So there we had a war between the British East India Company and the Maratha Confederation in India. We had in the Czech famine that killed hundreds of thousands. We had the bubonic plague in Russia, and then the Kalmyk. The Kalmyk is what is it, like a tribe? Is it, can you can't call it a tribe? It is a group of people, of course, that is, they're nomads, and they are between, they have moved between Russia, the tundra, and China. So they here in that period, they, let's see, where was I? Here they went for independence. No. The Kalmyk, they remigrated from Russia to China. So there we go. And then we had there was a coup d'etat staged in Sweden. We had the elimination of Poland and Lithuania from the map for 123 years. And then we had another rebellion in Russia, Pugachev rebellion. We had the East Indian Company smuggled opium into China. So there, again, there's the event of trade, of course, and it is some kind of, well, can you call it trickery? It is a manipulation, because when with the opium wars, of course, there was a manipulation, and yeah, a manipulation of the Chinese population in order to gain control over them. So they basically tricked them into opium dependence in order to control goods and resources there. Then we had the US Revolution and the Declaration of Independence. And we had the Illuminati were founded in, God, I think even in Germany, by Adam Weishaupt. I don't even know whether, yeah, would I call this, would I consider this? Anyway, I just mentioned it here for the record. It is it is a tool to control minds for sure, and that is part of Gemini, the thinking apparatus that we have. We had an indigenous rebellion in Peru. We had Russia annexes the Crimea. We had a Caucasian Muslim religious war in Russia. We had the US Northwest Indigenous War. We had the Tuareg occupy Timbuktu, another Russo-Turkish war. We had the European colonization of Australia, where I think they gave even a starting money to British people to populate Australia. And then we had another French and Belgian revolutions. So you see a lot of upheaval. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, which is the sign of independence and breaking free. Uranus can be a change maker for the good, but and breaking free from shackles, but it is, if it is misused, then we end up with chaos and anarchy. Okay, so the period before that, actually, no, the other way around. The period following the 17 or the 1800s, that is, now we're talking about 1858 to 1866. So the exact dates again are June 1st, 1858 to March 27th, 1866. And that is when the first electronics were invented. So we had a telegraph and Morse code. We had relays. The first relays were invented. And then also the light bulb. That was when the light bulb was invented. And we had the Industrial Revolution. And with that, because we needed more labor, people that did the work, even like the assembly lines and all this, and a lot of children were used for that. So of course, then child labor was in the spotlight, and became more. I mean, children were more put to work. We had then medical developments, so morphine was developed. Yeah, anesthesia. I would even say anesthesia goes more is more associated with Neptune. But of course, it is one of the inventions that were used in medicine. Then, and also radioactivity. We had the first machine guns, we had the first steam locomotives, dynamite was developed, and we had the first human-powered bike in that time period. Then we had slavery was abolished in much of Europe and in the Americas. Then we had a lot of revolutions and Latin American independences and the decline of the Ottoman Empire and independence of the Balkan nations. We had colonizations were still going in India and in Africa and in Asia and in the US native territories. And we had the US buying land from France and Russia. So Alaska, of course, was Russian territory before, and also the US East Coast. There were a lot of regions like New Orleans and the Carolinas. They were French, so the US bought it. And we had many wars, mostly over power, independence, land control, economic control, and slavery. And then the period after that was 1941 to 1949. And that is the exact dates again. Second. Bye-bye. So that was, the exact dates are August 7th, 1941 to June 9th, 1949. And in that time period, we saw the UK-US Atlantic Charter, where they planned the post-World War II period, and even before the World War II ended. Then we had Holocaust Germany. We had the state of Jefferson was declared in Eureka, California. We had Pearl Harbor that was followed by the UK attack on Japan. Then we had the Yalta Conference in February 1945, where also post-war reorganization was negotiated. And then Gemini, of course, being the sign of negotiations. Then we had mass suicides in Pomerania in Germany. We had Algeria massacre just upon like after Germany had to surrender. We had the Rhine Meadow massacre. Most people don't know about it, where all the young surviving soldiers were hurdled like like herds of animals, like cows, by foot. They were herded down to the Rhine meadows, and they were gated by just barbed wired up on a meadow. There were no barracks really, and they had to stay there from pretty much May until September. And there was one water line that brought the water from the River Rhine that was their drinking water, and it was totally contaminated with the like tanks and contaminated water from diesel and oil and everything going into the Rhine River, and also the diseases from all the dead bodies after the World War. So that was very traumatic and very shoved under the carpet. So I definitely want to mention it here to honor all those souls, all the young men. Okay, and there was Operation Paperclip, where after the Nuremberg trials, the US took, I don't even know how to say this, they took scientists from Germany and use their brains to develop the bombs and develop space travel and many other things. So in that they were replanted in the US, and there God, probably difficult to say all this, but it is when things like MK Ultra were developed, and I think also that a branch of the heads that initiated World War II were they cut off, and I don't think that they diminished. They don't think they diminished. I think that the movement is still in disguise. Anyway, let's skip it. And probably it is noticeable how heavy this topic is for me. So we had another military coup d'etat in Venezuela. Then the United Nations and the UNESCO and the International Court of Justice were formed. We had an 8.1 earthquake in India, and then Tito takes dictatorship in Yugoslavia. And promethium was discovered, which was uranium-based, uranium. And among others, it also was used for creating neon paint, like luminous paint. So that was like a heavy loaded time, as you probably can tell from my voice also. So, and I don't want to trigger any people that I don't really want to trigger, but I want to at least plant ideas and maybe at best inspire people to do research on their own. Anyway, okay, so how could the Uranus in Gemini period that is coming up in July, how could that show up? So we have the entry, the ingress, when Uranus enters Gemini, that will be July 6, 2025, and it will stay in Gemini until May 22nd, 2033. Oopsie, it's not moving. No. Oy. Okay, so my slide is not moving. I can stop the share. I don't know. What can I do? Okay, stop the share. Maybe I share again. It does not move. I stop the share. Or what can I do? Oh, here we go. How cool. So Uranus in Gemini keywords. So obviously we had a lot of wars as we can see. Since Uranus is the planet of science, it can be detached from the outcome. So the scientist at its best should be detached from the outcome. It should be a curiosity, Gemini, in testing out what the future result will be when I maybe mix A and B liquids or whatever, or I do this, I test something, I have an experiment, and I want to know what happens then. So in that, Uranus is interested in the future. It is associated with high technology, and therefore it is more appropriate in Gemini because both have fast qualities, Gemini as the sign and Uranus as the planet, whereas Uranus in Taurus was thwarted. That means the fast-moving energy of Uranus in the slow and methodical sign of Taurus was not able to express itself as well. So it was halted. It was blocked, not blocked really, but slowed down, slowed down. So, okay, so we saw, of course, that independence was big coming up in the past, and also the control over land, wanting to control land and control economy and workforce. So just taking kids because they couldn't, I mean, they were under the thumb of the adults, so just taking the kids and using them for labor was an easy thing because they're an easy target. They're an easy opponent. So what can a kid do? An adult has more force and more even bodily power, physical power. So we saw the reordering of war prey, and the same we are already seeing when it gets to the Ukraine-Russia war and in the Middle East, where Turkey is yeah kind of helping Syria to get rid of oppressing dictatorship. But in the end, I mean, if it is favorable for all parties and all nations involved, by all means, why not? Forming a greater union like the European Union. However, when the I would say when the committee or when the leaders of the committee are acting in their own interest and it is not in the interest of the people anymore. Uranus, Aquarius is all about people and equality. If that is not given anymore, then anything will fall into the dictatorship or into control and 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 yeah, basically also yeah, communism, and where everything like everything is for the good of all and everybody is equal, but only a few are the ones that are pulling all the levers and pushing all the buttons. So we saw food shortages, and of course with all these wars that are going on, and especially in the holy areas, Jerusalem and Israel and all those areas that form the cradle of humanity, because that's where we found the first cuneiform tablets by the Sumerians that were left behind by the Sumerians. So the first recorded um, records, if you want, of history. So that's where all these wars have been taking place, and the fanatic um, yeah, wanting to have like one religion, even though that is not something that I would accredit to Uranus or Gemini. Gemini can be, it is the axis Gemini Sagittarius that deals with an opinion, a fact versus an opinion. So those things like, you don't believe what I believe, so I will kill you, or I will torture you until you accept my opinion or my belief and my dogma. So, okay, back to the food shortage. I think that all the contamination due to those wars will also impact the food availability, not and yeah, transportation in terms of when ships cannot go through like Suez Canal because they are being attacked, and also the around the Arabian Peninsula where the Houthis are capturing cargo ships, and then also the farming control, because I think I mentioned it in part one that you know who is the biggest developer of computer programs is buying farmland in the US and making it extremely difficult for farmers to grow heirloom seeds and heirloom fruits and veggies. that I think that we will probably see in the 7 years of Uranus and Gemini being being a question. And I don't want to say, see, you never really know what the outcome will be, because it depends what we make out of it. If it is the topic, if the topic is rain, for example, I'm free to take my umbrella, or I'm free to not have my birthday party out and have it a garden party, but have it an inside party. So that's where the beauty of a little bit of energetic foresight can be super helpful. And we are able, because we are also interconnected, that just by compound interest and by uniting forces, joined forces, we can change the outcome. So knowing about, okay, what can be an issue, we can make sure that we have on a local political, local government level, however long government will still be a thing, um, and not, I think the future of government will rather be that we have ambassadors that are there to guide and help with certain aspects in society, such as education, healthcare, farming, food, decision making, neighbors, like neighbor nations, dealing with neighbor nations, helping people that have suffered some kind of a natural disease, natural hurricane or whatever. So on a local level, we can do a lot and change things around. So it does not have to be uh, a damaging outcome. So other topics were independence and secession of nations and states and regions. And here's where I see Uranus, Gemini, the trickery and double games and false flags, psyops, and all this, because Uranus is also associated with high tech, as I mentioned. And here I think the AI factor comes in. It is a super helpful tool. I have been working when you do research, of course, you can work it, and image generation. It is really the beginning of it. Okay, it doesn't do the six finger hands anymore, but man, sometimes it is so annoying, and you have to render so many versions of the image that you are looking for, and it can be really frustrating and time consuming, because you're staring at the screen for a minute or two until the image is rendered and established and built, and it is not what you wanted. And then you go back to going on the internet and finding something similar, what you are planning. And also in Britain, I mean, I tried, of course, doing astrological research with it, and we were just discussing it this morning when it came back and gave me a date, and it wasn't a full moon. So I replied back, "Hey, this is not a full moon," and it said, "Oh, thank you for catching that." And then it came back with the corrected version, and it's useless in that, so you cannot rely on it. But it is good for summarizing and rephrasing and giving bullet points, or you give it bullet points and it will rephrase. So those kind of things are super helpful and time consuming. Even giving you a structure. And maybe it's because I'm such a dinosaur when it gets to using um, high tech and computer programs. I can write it, and I had actually good grades when I had it, when I went to school for it, and I wrote programs, and with ones and zeros. But what I can do whatever I need to use, and so therefore I'm definitely not a computer nerd or programming and developer nerd. But you can write simple websites with it and all this. It's very helpful. But how do we use it? And of course, there is an interest in tricking us into whether it is buying products or signing up for programs or whatever. So there's definitely nudging and influencing us. Plus, with I mean, with the what is it, like the video generation and the Project Bluebeam that has been out there for a while already. So with that, I mean, I've seen projections into the sky. I think it was in China, amazing. Like instead of an fireworks, they projected amazing artwork into the sky. And so it's probably easy to fall for it and like, oh my God, what is that? Like a drone? And we had drones, of course, and here in New Jersey, and I think even worldwide. So well, this is the other thing, the connection with the brothers and sisters in outer space. So Gemini being communications. So the other thing is then going back into my in my list here on my list is modern warfare. So maybe it is at one point not the war that is taking place on the 3D out there, sacrificing human life, but maybe they just do it as a computer game. I think I mentioned it even in part one. Then so yes, it can come to sudden deals and negotiations on a very large scale. Communications with neighbors, I just said, and the quantum jump in high-tech developments, also transportation, think of flying cars and in communication. Probably even that in that far that we humans are being trained to think of ourselves as just very limited beings and not using our higher senses, because Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. Mercury is the planet that rules Gemini. So you see the connection there. So Uranus is a hunch, is a sudden insight. It's like the wire to up there, like to outer spheres and getting downloads out of the blue. So that is definitely a muscle that we can train. Plus, we have Neptune going into the sign of Aries, and Neptune being such a strong, like visionary and going into the like being the psychic planet. So it's all about communication there on a level that is not a smartphone or a telephone or whatever. And then so now okay, the Industrial Revolution, we do already 3D printing, so it has been used already in medicine for prosthesis, but I think it could be even coming into the households for everyday people. So you need a part for your vacuum cleaner that broke and you just print it. For it will be, I think it will become really accessible for people, for just the regular people in daily life. And also aviation, we saw in part one already, we saw a lot about plane crashes, and Uranus being the sign of aviation. Interestingly, I did not see as many plane crashes as I saw with Saturn in Aries. That's an interesting thing. And I also think that we will see more when we look at Jupiter in a moment. But I think that there will be developments that the aviation that we knew will just be very, very much advanced, and if not even taking us to outer space, to um, to the moon and to Mars, and even in shorter time than we are used to thinking. I think it will burst our bubble of how we have seen the world, and the more open we are, the easier it will be. And going further on our list here, so it will be about decentralization of power and also the networking that goes hand in hand with Pluto being in Aquarius, networking more on a like eye level, on an eye level, on eye level, and like roots under earth, being connected on the same level, deep connection networks, where also where it will be where we find each other really, and on means that are not so obvious. Of course, not only in printed magazines, like I'm looking for something, or like the what's it called, the classifieds. I need a bike, and I go on a newspaper that I pick up in a store or so. So it will be way more energetic innovation in trade and money systems. And that we looked into in part one already. We saw many indicators that something is coming up. We all know it. I mean, we all have been knowing that something has to come, because this petrodollar is just built on a lie. It cannot be that there's a private company, the Federal Reserve, that is deciding when to reprint more and what to dictate and where to set the interest rates and all this. This just cannot go on. It was a lie. Just because it has been for most of our times, it doesn't mean that it is fair and that it has to continue. Right now, there is already talk. The current administration, as of today, the 18th of January, so we are Saturday, on Monday, Trump will be inaugurated, and he said already that he will drop the taxes on salary and will rather put taxes on doing trade with other nations. So there is already some innovation. Uranus and Aquarius are all about innovation coming up. And we in part one, we looked already at the CBDC tracker of the digital currency in like worldwide currencies, and we saw the interactive map that all of you can look up and see how far they are. Two of them were launched already. We know already from part one that Bitcoin is not very practical yet. It is not accepted equally and widespread. And so let's look for something new. And we looked a little deeper also into other systems, and also how we can do peer-to-peer payments that is not on the conventional way, because all the conventional is breaking away. All the conventional structures, whether it's government, whether it's banking, is fading away, and we have to adapt. So let's hop on to Jupiter and Cancer. And here, let's go on a voyage again into the past and look how Jupiter and Cancer has shown up when it happened previously. So the period that is the furthest out, that means the longest ago, was 1978 to 79. So Jupiter stays in a sign for a year. And the exact dates again are April 11th, 1978 until April 20th, 1978. Oh, one more time. April 11, 1978 until April 20th, 1979. So that is when the US voted to turn over the Panama Canal control to Panama. And that was supposed to be effective on the 31st of December in 1999. And guess what? We are talking again about the Panama Canal, the US taking back the Panama Canal. So you see how astrology is just on clock. it's amazing. Then we had Tbilisi demonstrations to protect the Georgian language. So yeah, let's look at Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of expansion and justice and truth, higher education, of religion, philosophy, anything foreign travel, long distance travel, and also higher education. I think I mentioned the whole clerical system and the justice system, so justice. And Cancer is the sign of family, of food in the body. It is the sign of the stomach, the breasts, and it's the sign of family lineage, tradition, just to mention a few. And so there you can see when the language protection is part of the Jupiter in Cancer. So that definitely is a typical expression of Jupiter in Cancer when it gets to a nation wanting to protect a language, or maybe the language being challenged. We had the Soviet shoots down Korean airplane for violating airspace. So airspace, Cancer is protecting, and it's about security, protection, security, and home turf. Cancer is the home, so it's the family and it's also the home. It's associated with the fourth house in astrology in the chart. And we had the One Love Peace concert in Jamaica. Bob Marley was bringing together opposing parties. We had the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan proclaimed under the communist leader. We had the first Mount Everest ascent without oxygen. So Jupiter also, because it's about expansion, it's also a very athletic planet. It's very much interested in horsemanship, but also all the outdoors. And then hiking the Mount Everest falls into that category, of course. We had the first time zone entertainment center opened in Australia. Also, Jupiter likes to gamble and play, take risks, thinks big. Then we had Soviet dissident jailed for distributing counter-revolutionary material. Jupiter is related to publishing. So where Gemini, the opposing sign, we always think in an axis, in polarity. So Gemini, the sign of communication, speaking, ABC 1 to 3, basic education, and communication, fact gathering, and in the opposite sign of Sagittarius, which Jupiter is the ruler of, there it is all about reaching, like going looking at it from a bird's perspective, so that is reaching a large audience and not only communicating on a small level. No, it is like really, it's writing a book, and it's always the big picture versus the small details. So that's the ninth house and Jupiter and Sagittarius. So there you can see the like distribution of material, of print material, is taking it to a higher level, and that's when somebody is not okay with the content, then there you see this challenged. There was a 53-year-old woman running across the US in 69 days. So it's also a record. It's like really, it's bigger, higher. Jupiter is, yeah, big, high, far. It's bigger, better, greater, more. That's Jupiter, expansion. So that's why I found this is super fitting, this example. And 53-year-old woman, that's really amazing. We had the first Unabomber attack. So here the Unabomber was a guy who wanted, he was totally against modernization and computers and all this, and defending tradition, basically. So that's Cancer. We saw Japan airplane had a tail struck on a runway on landing. Here is the first incident that I saw that had to do with aviation. And here, I don't even know why I mentioned it, because we're not looking at aviation anymore. Anyway, so the next one is Amazon Corporation Treaty, and not Amazon the company, but they protected the Amazon basin. So they formed a treaty to protect the Amazon basin. And that's the outdoor, it's nature, and it's also the homeland for the Amazon and the indigenous people living there. So that's a good expression of this energy. We had the Solomon Island independence from UK. That's related to home turf. We had the first South African woman crowned Miss Universe. There, it's also Jupiter is about multicultural. So that was, I thought, was a good example of Jupiter in Cancer. And we had the first in vitro baby born in the UK. In terms of designer babies, which we looked at in part one already. So forming like a synthetic family, if you want, family being Cancer. And we had the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between Japan and China. We had the first balloon crossing the Atlantic successfully. And we had the Christian Socialist Political Party seize US-occupied Nicaraguan National Palace. So there you see also, because Jupiter is related to religion, so we see how this goes, it ties into the national politics and the Christian socialist, and also intervening, because it's the when we talk about the US occupied Nicaraguan palace, so you see the interweaving international affairs with the religious aspect. Then we had the Camp Davis peace accords between Israel and Egypt that was hosted in the US. We had the Declaration of Alma Ata signed in Almaty. And we had, oh, I see, it's all together. So, okay, so this is about the state-sponsored primary health care. So health, Cancer is about health, and Jupiter is benevolent. So here it was about providing state-sponsored healthcare for the people. We had an airplane collision in San Diego with 144 dead. And okay, so Jupiter is about long distance travel, and I think that's why I took the aviation incidents in there in this time frame. I wouldn't say it's necessarily representative of Jupiter, but if you look at Jupiter representing long distance long distance travel, definitely one of the forms or one of the modalities would be then the air traffic. We had John Paul I dies after only 33 days into office. And we had another Finnair flight hijacked. What's that? Oh, so there is Jim Jones' new religious movement, the People's Temple. It's called the People's Temple. That was a sect, basically, and in an organized mass killing and suicide of 920 people in Jonestown. And that is because Jupiter is religion and also philosophy. So that when you have dominant energies in aspect to Jupiter or in the sign of Sagittarius, is when we have seen a lot of fanatical religious attacks. For example, Pluto was in Sag when 9/11 happened. And we had the first artificial insulin was invented. So again, Cancer being involved in, also Cancer being involved in nutrition and a lot of health related diseases come from malnutrition. Insulin is related to diabetes, and that has a lot of sugar. Cancer is known for like people with strong cancer energies in their chart have a craving for starch and sugar. So that is rounding off the past of when Jupiter was in Cancer. Now Jupiter is going to enter Cancer in June. The exact date is June 9th, 2025, and it will stay until June 29th, 2026. So let's see how that may show up. We have, yeah, as we saw in the past already, territorial issues, land grabs, defending home turf. Again, the Panama Canal is becoming a hot topic again. Now we even have the talk about Greenland becoming US territory, and Canada. There's the talk about it becoming the 51st state. We have the situation Israel and Turkey in those Holy Land regions where Israel would like to have the Gaza Strip, and Turkey wants to do the greater Turkey area. So those topics, and again, I'm not predicting any outcome because we are forming the outcome in how we deal with it, and what energy are we feeding in all this conflict. Are we frightened? Are we angry? And what do we support really? I always say, like, we vote with our fork, with our wallet, with our opinion, with our click. So then we have environmental awareness and environmental protection. Those topics we may see surface. Justice against polluters, and we saw that in part 1 already, big time, the consequence about for polluting. And especially, I mean, right now the big threat with the fires in Los Angeles, it's not as big anymore, and also the winds have calmed down big time. So I mean, all that is not going away without a consequence. We saw religious wars, and that will resurface again. Extremism, we have to be careful because Jupiter likes to exaggerate because everything is made bigger than it is, and it's a fire. Sagittarius is a fire sign, so Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, and the natural ruler, and the Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. We cannot forget about that, and it's also a sign of spirituality. So there we see the connection again. We have, let's see, where was I? Stand up for justice. Justice, big time, big time, big time. Revolutions, demonstrations, riots, and coup d'etats. Defending cultural heritage. And here we had, even when we look back to 2014, we saw the Maidan protests, where the Ukrainian people, which was the hot button for the war that we see going on. Part of it is the Maidan protest that kicked it all off in 2014, when the people that were when the border went back and forth. And I'm myself from that area, from my mother's side. So my own grandmother, had to flee from the Soviets at those times, and the borders were going back and forth. Then at one point, the Bulgarians took over, so everybody had to speak that language. And you see how the cultural heritage had been thwarted many times in the past, and the people that have formerly been like Polish people, all of a sudden there is no Poland anymore for 123 years. And Maidan protests, when the now Ukraine says, oh, you cannot speak the Russian language anymore, and we cannot, in school we cannot teach it anymore, and when you speak it even in your private, like, I don't know, so society, social circles or so they attacked the people that lived in those regions, like the bordering regions of the Donbass and all those regions. So people were protesting against that. And in Georgia, we had the demonstrations to protect the language. And so today, even yesterday, we were talking with friends and talking about in Mexico and Belize, you still have Mennonites that speak a German dialect, which is like a lower German, Plattdeutsch, that today still they speak that dialogue. That I think there's even another word for that dialogue, dialect. So it's kept. So, and I think why not keep it? And I would ever always when I teach languages, I think it's very important, even if you live in a foreign country. I do make sure that I speak my German, and I don't neglect my German culture. So let's see, we had the cultural heritage. We will be seeing probably bankruptcies. I don't remember where I saw it actually. I don't think that I mentioned it in the flashback in when we just looked at Jupiter and Cancer last time. But in one of these deep dives, I saw the Amron. I don't even remember in which period that went, but this was like a big scandal where money was mishandled, and we remember the bailouts of the banks in 2007 and 8. So Jupiter thinks big and likes to gamble, and that can end up with a bankruptcy if yeah, financial scandals and economic crisis. So I think that that is something we will see. Um, Financial upheaval, new currencies we touched on already. Community dollar is one thing that I remember. So some farmers markets do have a dollar that like a token that you would use for buying your groceries. And oh yeah, here again the looming that I explained last time already. That's group financing. So you do an investment and you get your investment back eightfold. It is when everybody does their share, of course. Then you go through those 4 stages and you get back eightfold your investment, and then people come back again from the outside, concentric circling. You go inside and get your eightfold investment back. But it requires commitment, and if everybody does that, it can be going on for a long time, and it has been in all old, like ancient cultures, even in indigenous cultures, they have been doing this. And what is that called? Microfinancing, exactly. That was the other form. So it is possible. The circle that I am in right now in a loom started in 2016. So it's definitely possible to keep it going, but everybody has to be on the same side. And there again, it comes to the point, or to the question, is in the question of compound interest and mutual interest and mutual working for one goal, one one outcome, and for the good of all. So having the good for all in mind, because when I feel good when the people around me feel good. When people around me feel miserable, I don't feel good. So you see what I mean. And then also fair trade, as we saw also that regions that are the so-called third world countries and all this, that I think that the tide is turning out already. I think already I pick up in news these days, in modern times and days, at the beginning of 2025, I hear that like African countries, first of all, becoming free from oppression, shaking off the old colonialists, and really realizing on what a wealth of mineral and resources they are sitting. We will see peace movements already, of course, and peace deals there in the makes already, like these hostages exchanges. So that will be on the rise and very much supported by Jupiter in Cancer. And multicultural collaborations, inclusion, and this whole thing of the minority, like everybody has to think pink now, everybody has to do that now. It is, I think, a natural inclination of the human that we include people. And I think it will go back to this natural inclusion, that we just don't make differences because some kind of group that wants to shape society, this social engineering. I think it's that people are over it. I think more and more people are just looking through this, and they had it. They are over it, and they're not so susceptible to this anymore. Breaking records, as we have seen with these examples from the last couple of trips that we made into the past when we had Jupiter in Cancer. So more records broken, extreme achievements, also in sports. And spirituality becomes a habit. As one of these images, I picked a mechanic that is meditating at work. So I think that people will just, Jupiter is, as we know already in the meantime, is associated with spirituality. And spirituality from the first part, we remember it's an inside job versus religion, which is often like pushed on us from outside in the form of dogmas. Then we will see changes in education, as Jupiter and Sagittarius are both concerned with higher education, that we will see, yes, more home-based probably, and also more, and yeah, online and in small parts and homeschooling, and it will be more like coaching. So this is the beauty working with astrology for so long. You see the strengths and the talent in the chart, so you can really encourage that and not force a child to do something just because it is a so-called good, well-paying job or so. Our whole future will be so different. The jobs that have been helpful in the past, we have to see, and with the help of AI, we will just shape a different future. And it is not said that the human has to suffer. We can thrive using AI as a good tool, as a meaningful tool, but it is important, like who has the hand of it. And it is best if we have it as an open source, so it is a community good, that it is not regulated by some kind of an authority that is having intentions that are not good for the people, which we probably all agree that has been for way too long, and I'm talking millennia. So, and then travel, as I said. So yeah, I don't know, maybe will it be more domestic, because Cancer is domestic, because maybe there will be threats, or there will be, I don't know, maybe limitations with Saturn and Aries. So I don't know, we will see. Maybe it will be made more safer, that we have better standards. I hope so. And not only domestic, because I'm someone who does fly internationally, and I need that, and I don't want to miss that. And but also it could be that we will have different way of propulsion, as we saw in part one also, and maybe it's more comfortable. It may be also faster, and hopefully it will not show up in the form of more crashes and hijacking because of mental crazies. I think also, without wanting to trigger people, but as I said earlier, we have to get used to broadening our mind. We have to open our mind, and that could be that there are ways that we overcome the time it takes to take an overseas flight. Maybe that is through wormholes, maybe that is through timeline like changing timelines in a way that we have not been told or allowed to know. And maybe, I mean, we know also that magnetism is a thing. I always, in my gut feeling, has for years said that propulsion will be going more in the direction of magnetism. So maybe we're using the poles to travel with, I don't know, devices from pole to pole in a fraction of what we are used to now. So anyway, just throwing that out. I'm just thinking aloud. You may call me crazy. It's okay. And then we will see a lot of public trials. Of course, Jupiter being the planet of truth, and extreme weather. Of course, Jupiter being the sign or the planet of extremism, and maybe even higher birth rates again because of the Cancer placement, and Cancer being all about families, and Jupiter the planet of expansion. So I don't know, we will see. And healthcare, of course, I think that is already a thing, and hopefully, I mean, I can only say I hope that RFK is making changes to the healthcare system, which I think is so bad, and it's just here to make us returning customers to buy the medications that are made to pull the money out of people's pockets. So I don't know, hopefully. All right, so I think that concludes then our last two planets changing signs. So I think with all the planet changing signs, it feels like on a train station, trains pulling in and going out. There's a lot of interaction and a lot of movement. So we will see. So eclipses. So most of my eclipses, and I don't know, I'm probably a lot of people from other places may also pick up these forecasts. But since I live in the US and my slides were made for the Southern California Astrological Network that I'm part of, I'm actually on the board there, serving proudly. And that's why I'm drawing lines to the US chart here. So, but it does, of course, the lunar eclipses are for everyone in each corner of the planet, and they are happening whether we can see them or not, whether they are total for us visually or not. It is the only interruption of the electromagnetic flow that is flowing between the planets and Earth and Moon and the Sun, the radiation. We all know that the Moon has an impact on Earth and on the organisms which humans are part of, animals as well, and plants and all this. So we know that there is something at play, and it is not a pseudoscience. So of course, if you listen to this, you will have a certain trust in this anyway. So, but I want to keep it very open and not be too technical here. So I don't want to lose just regular people that don't know a lot about astrology. Okay, so the lunar eclipse, the first one, we have 4 this year, and the first one will be in Virgo. So we, now that the nodes, which are the points where the moon that go the moon that goes around Earth and Earth goes around Sun, those points, there are 2 points that when you think of 2 hula hoops, you lay them on top of each other, and then you incline them. So you incline them a little bit, and so you have 2 circles basically that are not on top of each other, but one is a little lifted up, and then you have 2 connection points, and those are the nodes, and they're kind of like vertices and connecting points. They're connectors basically. So you have one that is ascending and one descending. The one that is ascending is called the north node. The other is the south node, and in Vedic they call it the ascendant, call it Rahu, and the descending they call it Ketu. So the dragon's head, the dragon's tail. So they have different names, but in many cultures they have been important points for people. And so the north node and Rahu and the dragon's head is where we are nudged direct our efforts and actions and thoughts and our activities toward. And the south node is what we bring to it, what is our talent that we bring to it, our experience from the past that is really coming easy to us, and they're comfortable, and we know it, but we are asked to come out of our comfort zone and do the work that we chose to come to do. So in that, the south node in a mundane is a world horoscope, so it's for a country basically, and for everyone, versus the personal horoscope, which is for a personal, for somebody, like a personal horoscope for a personal birth chart. So the south node is often that what we want to let go, that is not serving us anymore, and we want to let go the quality. For example, this one is in the sign of Virgo, the south node. So those qualities, the negative qualities, we want to make sure we will, that we don't apply criticism, we don't apply being too much in our head, being like penny counting, all those, and rather look at the qualities of Pisces, the good ones that are attainable and desirable. That is spirituality, that is compassion. And so that said, we have the sun and the so it's basically a full moon, and the sun is in Pisces, and it is connected with the north. So the north node is on the sun, and also, as you can see, 23 degrees of the planet Saturn. So we have Sun, Saturn, but also Neptune. So they're all kind of like clumped together, and they're opposing the moon. And in the same moment, the moon in a mundane horoscope standing for the people, so the population. So it is kind of sandwiched between the Neptune of the US and so that is kind of like pushed against the wall, a little bit pressured, the people, that it's like a pressure. Yeah, it's a pressure point, but it is what we need sometimes to make a change. When it is all easy and flowing, if we don't feel the pressure, the push, like, oh, I have to this or that, so we feel the urge to do something, that's a good thing in a way, because I mean, there's no horoscope that is all flowing with trines, and of course, and you know, it's just not possible. We do need a balance, and we are not here to spend our life in a hammock. But I don't want to use all the time now on one, because on one eclipse, because we have 3 more to go through, and then I want to look at the Mayan also. Okay, so let's see. We have a square, the nodes, the nodes, and the eclipse does square the Mars of the US chart. The Mars of the US chart is in the 7th house. That is in a mundane chart is the others. It's the connections, the relationships with other countries and other nations. So this could show up in affecting the foreign affairs that the US has, ruffling feathers of enemies through heated arguments. So heated argument, that is Mars is fire, is a fire planet, and bold statements. We know who is very capable of making bold statements. You know, it's and it's ruffling feathers. Of course, it's not something new, but an eclipse comes to like it's a reset button in a way, and it's like putting light on it. It's a very galvanized and a highly efficient full moon that happens to be close to the nodes, so it does have an extra effect. And so it also has a supportive, favorable trine aspect to the US Pluto that sits in the US's chart in the 2nd house of personal resources and values, banking, money, the US's money. And so, and in the same moment that the south node has a trine, the north node has sextile. So it can be, well, it can be something favorable. So it can be something supportive. And let's see, I do have covered on my notes here. So yeah, so Pluto also is influential. It's powerful connections, and Pluto stands for power and wealth, and also control. So in terms of like what to control, maybe what resources to control. So that's that, and I want to hop on to the next one. Oh, let's go back one more time. In our personal horoscopes, let's look where is your 23, almost 24, 23, 24 degrees of Virgo and Pisces? What house does it fall in? That will tell you what life areas are affected. Where's your reset button? So now we look at the solar eclipse on March 29th. That is at 9 degrees Aries. That is the last one in that series, Aries Libra, because we know the nodes have shifted into Pisces Virgo. So logically, the future for 1.5 years now, we will have the eclipses also associated with those signs. And that's so here we can see on the first glance already everything is concentrated in one hemisphere. So so we have everything occupied from Aquarius, the humanitarian and scientific sign, to Pisces, to Cancer, the family and traditional sign. And so the eclipse is at 9 Aries, and with that, it is only 10 degrees from the previous eclipse in 2024. So that was in April, on April 19, 2024, that most of you may remember that formed an X, because the April 2017 eclipse that traveled from the northwest of the US down to the southeast of the US, now in April 2024, that eclipse came up from the southwest and traveled up to the northeast, and that created an X. And in Texas, I happened to be in Frederickstown and I saw it live. It was amazing. It was actually my very first eclipse that I witnessed with my own eyes. So I think it will pick up that energy, and also it closes the Aries Libra axis, I said. So that brings up or puts a spotlight probably also again on that particular area in the US. And with Mars being in the sign of Cancer, Mars is exalted in the opposite sign of Capricorn. So being in Cancer is like, oh, this is way too emotional for me here. It's like Cancer is all about emotions, and it's about women, and it's about mother and all this. And Mars is the warrior. So Mars wants to be fast. It's a fiery sign. So it does not, you cannot swim as fast in water as you can run on land. And so Mars is not super happy in Cancer, and it is at best defending the home turf and traditions. And it's with also with the it forms a square, a challenging square with Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer, and Mars Chiron, there it is about dealing with wounds and embarrassment. So, and it forms a trine to Saturn. And so it's okay. It's a trine between two malefics. There's the so-called malefics. They are the planets that are, the ancients have called them malefics, and a trine, it's a good aspect, a helpful aspect between two malefics. So how will that turn out? I think that something like being disciplined, something like creating your structure, doing your homework before you go play. All these things are valuable. They don't feel good in the moment, but they help us on the long run. And that's Saturn. That's what Saturn is about. So Yeah, going back also to Saturn, also border issues, and also, of course, the home turf automatically is concerned with border issues. And then, so here, there are these 5 stages of grief. And we have, it's the denial. Number 2 is anger. Number 3 is bargaining. Number 4 is depression. And number 5 is acceptance. So it feels like it's the first and second, denial and anger, uh, those first two stages of the yeah, moving from confusion to reaction, I call it here. So I thought it feels like, the division, this really drastic division after the elections in the US, that people may find like inching their way to togetherness. It's maybe the point of saying, like, okay, what can we learn from this? And maybe there is some healing, and maybe we have to look at it from a different angle and give it a try, and maybe understand the other half, and not saying like, oh, you voted for this, and believe me, I'm a green card holder. I have not voted. I don't vote. So um in the US, but it is interesting to see how really friendships fell apart. And I think maybe this is the first step of maybe accepting, hey, you vote that, I love you nevertheless, and you're my friend. I don't care whatever you vote. And then we come to the table and say, like, and talk to it. Like, democracy should be like that. Everybody comes to the table and respectfully talks about it, and puts and offers an opinion, and not forces an opinion. And yesterday with my friends, we had a real good and fruitful communication about this hot topic, and they were both Americans. So that was really good. And I think maybe this eclipse will help resetting, especially in the US, where I'm a local resident most of the year. And so hopefully, let's hop on to the next one. And that is the lunar eclipse on September 7th. And so here we have the eclipse in the so the moon, the lunar eclipse is in Pisces, Neptune being the ruler, and already having moved into the sign of Aries, but we do have the conjunction. See, it's not exact, but we will definitely feel the conjunction. We know from part 1 already that Saturn construction, Pisces water, so those topics will probably come up, dams, bridges, and all this on a mundane level. And here again, there is the, yeah, so Sun conjunct Mercury, T square between, let's see, what am I saying here? T square Mars. Hmm. Mars. Let's see, what am I saying? I'm trying to understand my own notes here real quick. Oh my God, yes. So, okay, so we have that T square Mars in opposition to Chiron, Mars, the warrior, anger, passive aggressive in Libra, and opposing Chiron, the wounded healer. So there again, it's about wounding and embarrassment and all this. And then Jupiter in Cancer. There, Jupiter in Cancer is well situated and is helpful and very benevolent. And then, of course, the T square is always building extreme pressure, and the outlet is then always in the missing link, which is opposite the apex, so opposite Jupiter, which is then 90 degrees of Capricorn. And Capricorn, what's that? It's using common sense and being a little more cautious, and being a little more also, yeah, yeah, even frugal, you could say, having a plan. and being disciplined also. So that will be helpful. And then, yes, it does work with the US ascendant. So, and because of the involvement of Jupiter and Mercury being connected with the sun. So there it could be probably that I think that there is already a little bit of a more openness in the media narrative, with Mark Zuckerberg just having come out and saying like in the past he always said no, we don't censor, and then now he came out in a podcast with Rogan and he said, yes, we have been forced in the past to censor, and now we just do community corrections or so, which is cool. I mean, when everybody can have an opinion, but then it has to be respectful. We shouldn't be insulting. And every time when I hear somebody insulting somebody else, like especially in politics, forever, when somebody puts down somebody else, they lose credit in my opinion. When somebody praises, okay, so look at Leo is the regent. It's like a regal sign. It's very the noble sign, the king. It is the leader, noble leader. So the best king ever is, or the best CEO in a company ever, will make sure that his employees or his people in the kingdom, they are all happy and they are all supported, because then your company flourishes and your country flourishes. If you hold them on a short chain, on a short leash, if you micromanage your employees, what kind of culture do you create, and how trustworthy are your people? Probably they start stealing from you. So that's definitely something to consider. I'm going way too long on these here. I wanted to be done faster. So okay, so yeah, the US image ultimately maybe changing even in a positive, no, not in a, it will change. It may be changing. It may be changing the US image in what way ever, I would say. And then, yeah, Saturn, Neptune in conjunction definitely is like dissolution of structure. So more dissolution of structure. I don't remember whether I talked about the personal expression of the previous eclipse. I do this one first. So let's see. In a personal chart, this eclipse, again, we look at the degree of the moon and the sun. So 15 Virgo and 15 Pisces. Where do they fall in your personal chart? Those houses are affected. And, I even expanded. So Virgo and Pisces are mutable. The other two, you have 4 mutable signs. The other two would be Sagittarius and Gemini. So those mutable signs, so you can even say 15 degrees mutable. So 15 Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Sagittarius. Those points where you have like what houses they fall, the sun and moon, plus what other contacts do you make, like in 15, even let's say you figure, okay, so my houses are whatever, 3 and 9, and then you want to figure, do I have any other things? So you look at 15 Gemini and 15 Sag, and if you have something connected to those points, then it does have an impact in your personal chart. And I hope I'm not too boring for those that are more advanced in astrology. And in the same way with the previous eclipses in the April eclipse, the 9 degrees Aries. So here it would be 9 degrees cardinal, whatever you have, 9 degrees Aries, Libra, or Capricorn, Cancer. So let's hop to the fourth eclipse. Solar eclipse at 29 Virgo 5. That is the so-called anaretic degree, and it has a lot of picture. So in astrology, the interplanetary connections are how the planets are exchanging their energy with each other, and they talk a big deal about how things turn out. Of course, we know a square is a stress, and a trine is a flowing, harmonious, and a sextile can be an opportunity that we have to act upon. And you see this kite, beautiful kite, is made up by the trine between basically the solar eclipse. And then on the other end of the spectrum, and you could even include Mercury and the solar eclipse. So Mercury, Sun, and Moon, and then we on the second angle of that trine we have power planet Pluto in Aquarius, and then we have Uranus. So those three, and then plus you have Saturn, Neptune, and I mean it's 2.5 degrees this difference between the degrees, but still it is so close together. So I consider them as a shoulder to shoulder. So they make the apex of this kite formation. So that's a powerful and supportive. I would call this like a very supportive formation where we should look at Saturn and Neptune, making spirituality real, like really real, tangible, like a daily routine, a daily discipline for us, and also our mindset, considering our mindset. What is our attitude? So, and let's see my notes here. Also, this is exactly on the 21st of September. What is that? The equinox. That's the fall equinox in the northern hemisphere, of course, and in the southern hemisphere for these guys, it's then for you down there, down under, it is the spring equinox. And it is very complex. It's very complex, but there's a lot of potential with all these images that are like the complex interactions with the planets. So yeah, definitely spirituality is like really shouting at us, look at me, and then gaining insights, revelations, disclosures, lifting veils, winds of change. And also the male and female, I would say there's a powerful trapeze, and that's only Huber. It's not very well known. It's a Swiss couple that came up with images that are like where they take the images, the planetary images, and they research that really deep. So Mars and Venus are part of it, and Uranus and Pluto. Uranus and Pluto are very, very strong change makers. They transform, and it is so transformed that it is almagating. It's like alchemistic. So it's not going back to the previous form. All right. I think we did that. Okay, so Sabian symbols. There is the Sabian symbols for the 29th degree, the anaretic degree. It's the last degree of a sign. Sabian symbols are, it's a double-blind experiment with a seer, with a psychic and an astrologer. And we have Mark Edmund Jones and Dane Ruddier. So they're two versions I used for this now. So the first one is a false call, unheard, in attention to immediate service, keyword safeguard. Ruddier says, totally intent upon completing an immediate task. A man is deaf to any allurement. So both indicate like stay on your path. Don't get distracted by any fear mongering, fear porns, and even like let's say there is a blue beam event, and if we keep in mind the best thing we can do is get out of fear. The worst thing that will happen is at one point we will our human body will expire at one point. This will happen, and we know that. So we should just get rid of it. And it does not say that I say like, hey, just be okay with dying, and maybe like a bad weather extreme will come upon us, whereas I'm so skeptical to say extreme weather. So I don't think it is all natural, and I leave it there. Probably by now you know how skeptical I am. And in part one, I said why, because it's just my nature is question authority. This is how I grew up, and that's how I came. But I'm just inviting people to do their own research, because it is out there and it's for free, it's public. So I think we have to stay on our path, and whatever is projected and whatever trickery is shown at us, question it first. Check a couple of resources. There were so many pictures where fear was instilled with all the lockdowns and what happened in the hospitals. I had a fellow student in one of my astrology classes, and he happened to be installing safety doors and also in hospitals, and he saw the hospital where the media said one thing and he said like the opposite. So, and he's not someone who's just sucking it up to look good in front of all our little class. No, it's just when what I saw here in the lockdowns is not what oftentimes was trumpeted out. And I don't say it like I connect it to a name. I say it like shouted out in the medium, where they really almost yelled it like with red hot. And when they talk about weather, they have like they use the colors that are pushing buttons, and they use pictures that are like old pictures. We have to do our research. So okay, I don't want to dwell on this forever. Common sense. Here, finally, we get to the Mayan perspective. The year bearer. So every year, the Mayan year starts on March 30th, and there's a different school, and I have a whole lecture on it with Scan, and you can purchase it. I will, how do I do it? I will just put the email address of our director in the description, and then you can email her and purchase that from her. And it talks about all the different approaches to Mayan astrology. I'm old school, so I have Capricorn on my third house of thinking and learning. So I like I'm serious in that. And so Arguelles is one calendar system that I did use also when I lived full-time in Playa. I actually lived with two calendars, the Gregorian, and I for many years I lived with the Arguelles dream spell calendar also. So I like it, and but I have been using a more serious calendar and more serious approach by Bruce Schofield and Barry Orr, who wrote a book, and they were so nice as to print out more of their lists with a computer program where they calculated the dates into the future after 2020, further out. And so that's what I'm working with. And they researched also with the Guatemalan elders, the Mayan elders. And so this is the Quiche or Quiche calendar system. And I'm really inclined to use that. So for me, it is ringing true until I find maybe something else. Also, a very dear fellow astrologer gave me a book that is more scholar and more like dry and more serious in that I'm studying. So, and also the precise eclipses that they had been predicting already. So, okay, so back to the Mayan year that starts on the 30th of March in 2025. Here so it's they always have the number, the direction, and then the god, the symbol, the day sign. So we have Ik, which is the wind. breath of life, and but also the wind that is in terms of weather, weather wind. So wind, of course, and air. The air sign is a mental sign, so it's about mental qualities, and it is a mutable sign, so it's diversified, it's flexible, and open, adaptable, and the wind only contacts the first surface, and it doesn't go deep, so it doesn't go into caves, and it doesn't penetrate the earth, and it just moves the surface of the water. And and it is focused thought versus scattered mind. And again, focused thought, that is what the 29th degree told us about the last of the eclipses in 2025. So the direction of north relates to violent weather, based, of course, on the Mayan, like looking into the ancient Mayan traditions and scriptures, and the codices, and um, everything that was handed down. Unfortunately, in the conquistadors, they did a real good job in burning all the books, but there were 4 saved. But anyway, so the North stands for violent weather, barren, dry, and cold. So challenges and hardship require a need, of course, to adapt to the environment. The poor folks in northern Los Angeles, they will have to deal the violent weather, the winds, basically. They were so ferocious. If there hadn't been that much wind and maybe more humidity, the fires wouldn't have spread that fast and would not have consumed that violently the buildings and widespread forest lands. And so, okay, and so there you do have to demonstrate a resourcefulness and a fitness. So finding housing quickly, and people were becoming really resourceful and using the pool pump and hosing down houses, even helping neighbor houses, and yeah, helping each other. And now even the fire department asking Canada and Mexico to help. So you get inventful when you're presented with hardship. So it's really not about putting your head in the sand. The number one hun is means beginnings, and it's ironically fortunate for starting something new, like a work or business. So, but you can translate that into developing new way of looking at life, and like it's a reset button in a way. Even though when you look at numerology, 2025 is a number 9 year, which is conclusions. And yes, we are concluding an old way of our world, even before 2025. God, I want to say before 2020, with the lockdowns and all this. Nobody in their wildest dreams would have thought something like this would happen. But it is really, now we say like before Christ and after Christ, and now we can even say before C and after C, being COVID. And I think it was helping us to become a little more nimble on our feet, and a little more open, and not saying and shutting down our mind. So it's okay. Okay, what else is there? So we're prepared by the last 5 years, by all the in our face insulting leaders that are so embarrassing on one side, and so well-meaning. What is the opposite of well-meaning? So malevolent, and taking advantage of people for profit, for money, which is like an old Capricorn is out. We don't have air. We have no air. In Western astrology, at least, we don't have, and we have air Aries, that is fire sign. We have Gemini, that is air, and then we will have, okay, so we will have water, we will have Cancer. So we have Jupiter in Cancer. That's then later on, from July on. But we have no air element in 2025 until Yeah, later on. Later on, we will have, yeah, we will have, well, right now yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. So, okay, so that is, yeah, here again, beginnings, and it's fortunate. It's so, okay, so you can look at it like that. It is helping us to be more open, to see things differently, so to restart our like way of life, how we do we really rely on healthcare, or do we take action ourselves related to fire? Fire is action anyway. Positive is outgoing, taking action, being proactive. And the element, fire element, okay, so I said that. And then the moon goddess, and that moon goddess is responsible for phases. As we know, the moon regulates the tide, so that is, the water comes in, stays, goes out, stays, comes in. So also the moon stands for fertility, and the moon is the lover of the sun. So the 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 moon and the sun stand for woman and men also. That, and then, so here I always like to draw a connection, and look at the um, other astrology schools also. So Mayan and Chinese. And yeah, I started that back in 2020, and I know I will have to make it probably smaller and add on the next 2 years then. So in 2025, we are going into the year of the snake, and the snake, we know, can also stand for healing. It is shedding the skin. So again, it is something like getting rid of something old, number 9, and also then we show up in our new skin, that is fresh, that is more flexible, that has vitality, number 1 in Mayan. So, and then the connection to the Western astrology is the sign of Virgo. Virgo is an earth sign. And in 2025, the direction is the north, and the year bearer is the sign, that they sign Ik, wind. So if we walk our eyes over to the left, we see that 2021 was a similar year. Okay, we didn't have, it was the ox year, and it was Taurus, but Taurus is also an earth sign. We had the Mayan also had the earth element. The Mayan had the north direction, and the Ik, because it's a regular interchange of these 4 year bearers, Ik, Manik, Eb, Kavan, Ik, Manik, Eb, Kavan. So, and then we look back, what happened in that year, 2021. So the highlights were, we had the January 6 riots, we had the Ever Given stuck in the Suez Canal, remember? And in part 1, we had with, I think it was with Saturn in Aries, waterways became of importance. They were highlighted. So the Suez Canal, the whole transportation was blocked. So there again, deliveries and that, whether it's food or merchandise, got stuck, got delayed. And then we had Derek Chauvin, the guy that supposedly killed, killed George, God, what was his name? You know, who, in May, Floyd, my God, yes, the summer of Floyd. So, and so Derek Chauvin pleads guilty. We had a huge condo collapse in Florida. I think 12 story 12-story condo collapsed in Florida, huge damage. And we had the US withdrawal from Afghanistan, when they really ran, and they had the fake images where people were running next to the aircraft, and they left all the equipment behind. We had the abortion law upheaval and the whole movement, my choice, my body. We had the US ferocious tornadoes, and we had the COVID-19 pill. So those events, those types of events, not that the same event come up again, but those types of events may be something that we will be seeing. Here, the Venus phases in the Mayan astrology are super important. Venus is male in Mayan astrology, and it's not a love planet, not really a love planet. So 2025, the fat print is more what the Mayans were looking at, and I threw the um, astronomical phenomena in there also for like orientation. So we 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 are still currently in the evening star. So the the morning star is more aggressive. It's kind of associated with, it's the daybreak and it's the Aryan part of the chart, right? The ascendant, if you look at the horizon. And then the descending is more, it's more gentle. Oh, we have the whole day behind us, and then let's maybe, I don't know, let's pop up a beer or whatever and relax and feet up and don't work anymore, and Libra and peace and beauty, and let's watch a movie or so, let's do something, let's be comfortable. And so that is the phase that we are currently in. We're kind of like towards the end of completing it. And then here I just mentioned real quick, there's this story when it's a beautiful story with Quetzalcoatl, the Mayan god. He's born and he becomes a king, and all is well in his kingdom. And then the he gets tempted. So he gets tempted. The uh, oh God, I forgot who it was. They come and they give him the pulque, like a drink, and then he gets drunk, and then he dances and he loses his mind, and then he has sex with his sister, and so incense, and then incest, not incense, incest, and then he wakes up, and then oh God, and he realizes, what have I done? It's like, whoa, and he and then so that's then uh let's see, and then he realizes, okay, he 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 regrets. So there's the regret and there's the judgment. So he's judged, and then so he goes away, and then he's reborn, and then the cycle begins. So just to say, there's a consequence for action. There's a temptation, sinning, consequence, action. So the phase that we are in right now, evening star, is the that's the part where we realize, oh my God, what did I do? Insight, repentance, remorse. Then we step down, resign. It's diplomacy. As I said, it's the descendant part of the chart, the Libra part of the chart. And this period lasts 250 days in the Mayan Venus phases. Then so the next phase will be the inferior conjunction. I'm just looking at the fat print now. So that is, you see, the 19th of March. Remember all the previous, like the ingresses. So 30th of March is the ingress of Neptune into Aries. We had one eclipse on the 30th of March. Was it the 30th? I don't know, but I want to point out, I don't want to say anything wrong, So, but you remember from what we looked at earlier, March is a big month, big month, and it's really a lot of aggression is there also. So the inferior conjunction, and then that is the beginning of the 584-day Venus cycle. So there is the surrender and the rebirth. And it's a shorter phase. It's only 8 days until Venus rises again, the heliacal rising at the Aries part of the chart. And that is the aggression. And that is usually the old Mayan, they said like bad news for the king will die and the famine will come over the land. And so it's not good news really. And then that's the personal drive. Of course, Aries, me, mine, lust, desire, sex, that is rising. And this period lasts 236 days. And then the superior conjunction will be in November 18th, 2025, the superior conjunction. And that then is the consequences for the sinning, the self-undoing, the immoral actions, and that lasts 90 days. So that's based on the Mayan calendar. What's the outlook? Let's see. That's it. So here I throw all of the year. I threw the most important dates on. I will not go over this. No. So if somebody wants the chart, the slides, I'm happy to send a PDF. And you can probably contact me, and I will upload it all on YouTube. And yeah, maybe if somebody wants, I'm gratefully accepting donations. But other than that, if you cannot afford it, then of course, by no means, I want to make this available, because I think there's a reason why I did this. So why holding it back? So I'm contributing. And so here's contact information. For astro tutoring, I'm available, and also readings, I'm available. Here's my contact information. I do also agricultural tours, mostly in Mexico, where I do have my other home, and retreats and workshops. I like to incorporate, I always do incorporate a little bit of astrology. Sometimes I have other themes, like what I thought was very cool, a workshop about masculinity and Aries and all this with a good friend who is running also workshops for men. And it's not only for men, it is for men and women, because we all have Aries somewhere in our chart, and we all have a Mars in our chart. So here's my contact information. And I just co-wrote a book with a wonderful person, Ashley Lauren, with whom I worked together in a school. And so it's fables for children, very soft astrology. So when you want to get your feet wet, even for the adults who are reading the book for the children, whether it's in school or at home at bedtime. So I offer that. So here I stop the share and I say goodbye. It's dark in the meantime now, and I upload this, and I will be in touch. Okay, bye bye everyone.